Hello, welcome everyone to Relax with Animal Facts. I am Steph Wolf, and I'm here to learn some facts with you today about our furry, scaly, or possibly even slimy friends, all while relaxing and sometimes going a little bit off topic. And that's what I love about doing this podcast, is because I get to learn right along with you guys. So for anyone that's new out there, this is a podcast aimed to help you maybe relax. We all have so many things, on our plates. We have families and we have school and or work or whatnot, and it's good to just take some time to relax, lay back. Maybe if you can find a comfy chair, or maybe this is at night and you're about to go to sleep, but you could even be walking around. But I think it's important to take some time to ourselves and just take some time to learn about something that is a personal passion of mine, and I'm sure is for a lot of you guys that are listening. You can listen to this podcast in a number of ways, right? You can just put it on and kind of space in and out. You can be totally attentive. That is all up to you guys, the listeners out there. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in, because today we are talking about the beloved koala. Okay, so koalas are amazing animals, very distinctive, I would say. Sometimes referred to as koala bears, but we'll get into that in just a second. So the facts this time are coming from savethekoala.com, and they have a page there for koalas and some interesting facts about koalas. I do not know pretty much anything about koalas. I know that, in my mind, before kind of learning anything here, I just know that they were marsupials and they lived in Australia. But I'm going to learn something here with you guys. So let's get into the first fact. Koalas are not actually bears. So that's the first thing, because you hear koala bears pretty often, I think. But turns out that they're not even related to bears. The koala is related more to the kangaroo and the wombat instead, which are two animals that I would love to get into actually another time. They're both very distinctive, and it's a marsupial animal. Okay, and the bear aspect of it apparently came from the fact that they look physically like a teddy bear. I mean, if you've seen a koala before, you know that they look super cuddly. I'm not sure if they are actually dangerous. I'm sure that it's probably not a good idea to go ahead and take a koala off of a tree and try to hug it. I don't know if it would reciprocate your affection, so I do not recommend that. But they look like teddy bears for sure. And let's go over what exactly is a marsupial. So we have kangaroos that are marsupials. We have koalas, and marsupials are any members of the mammalian infraclass, as they're referred to, Marsupialia. That's a hard one, which actually means from the Latin word pouch. So the defining characteristic of marsupials is that they do have this pouch that they carry their young around in, and that's how you can make that kind of distinction, right? Which is, and koalas do have pouches, so there you go. Koalas have 5 digits on each front paw, 2 of which are actually move in opposition to the others. And it's kind of close how we have in humans that opposition with our thumbs, right? And they move differently from the other fingers. And this allows them to have a better grip for the branches that they hold and for the food that they eat. It's generally for a grip. And their hind paws, they actually have some kind of fusing going on. Their hind paws are fused together to form a sort of grooming claw. So in many animals, grooming is a very important part of their daily routine. It helps with everything, just how humans take showers and or baths or whatnot. In the case of health for a lot of primates and in this case koalas, grooming is an essential part of keeping themselves healthy and clean. So koalas actually have a specialty kind of hind paw, or well, not just one, but they have 2 specialty hind paws. So they have kind of like so they each get groomed like a little koala hair salon there. And And koalas are mostly nocturnal. They do sleep for part of the night, it says, and sometimes they move about in the daytime, but they actually often sleep up to 18 to 20 hours each day. So this is an animal that sleeps for the vast majority of the day. You know, we're talking 2/3 or 3/4 of the day. And when we compare it to last episode, if you haven't listened to last episode, you can listen to it another time, or if you want, you can go back there and then come back here. It's up to you. But we did the giraffe, and the giraffe is super interesting because, as we learned in that episode, giraffes only sleep, I believe the number was 5 to 30 minutes a day, or 15 to 30, just below 30 minutes a day, which is an incredibly short time to sleep. And now when you contrast that to koalas, that is, very different kind of animal there. Now, in terms of how these, we know why the koala sleeps, as much as it does. We'll get into that in just a second. But it's such a high number when you compare it to giraffes, and that's why I love this podcast, or doing this podcast, is because I get to kind of string together these sort of relationships between the two, or contrasts, rather. This is more of a contrast. So yeah, they're nocturnal, and what nocturnal means is just that they're awake mostly in the nighttime, and they sleep in the daytime. So in the case of the koala, they do sometimes sleep for part of the night and also move in the daytime sometimes, but generally they're mostly nocturnal animals. And an adult koala eats about a half to a pound of kilograms of leaves each night. So a half kilogram to a kilogram of leaves each night. When we've talked about so many animals, so we have the gorilla, the elephant, the giraffe. They're eating, minimum for gorillas. They were eating like 30 kilograms of leaves a day and fruit and whatnot. And elephants were eating so much more than that. These koalas don't actually need that much, food to kind of get by. And the food that they eat is mostly what's referred to as gum leaves. And I remember actually a rumor or kind of a fact that people claimed was a fact when I was younger, that they actually get drunk on what they eat, on the gum leaves. That gum leaves have some sort of intoxicating property to it, and that's why they sleep all the time. But that's actually very inaccurate. I'm not sure where this started from. Maybe there's a history to it. Someone just wanted to, tell a joke about koalas and it just stuck. Who knows? I'm just going to take a quick drink of my tea here. But they actually, because the gum leaves that they eat are actually very toxic. They're very toxic for most mammals. So they sleep a lot because their diet takes plenty of energy to digest, because it's fibrous, it's toxic, and it's a fairly low nutrition diet. And sleeping is a great way to conserve energy. So we've all learned about hibernation maybe at one point or another, and it just shows how the power of sleep helps to conserve energy. I don't think that koalas hibernate, but in places where it becomes super cold for animals that can't really withstand it or just choose not to, for example, bears, they like to hibernate. Or they're not. I'm sure they like to sleep for months at a time, but it's mostly a necessity for them. But it's an amazing way to conserve energy, which is why koalas sleep so much. So they don't actually, it's not like you can give a koala a breathalyzer after eating gum leaves and they're gonna, score high on that over the limit. But they sleep a lot because of what they're eating is fibrous, very fibrous, toxic for the majority of other animals, and very low nutrition diet. So that's why they're always sleeping. It's not because they're drunk. It's just because of those reasons. Let's get into some of the kind of koalas' habitat here. Rather, what they call home. So each koala's home is made up of several trees, and those are referred to as home trees. And the area where their home trees are kind of located is called a home range. So these home ranges are actually very similar to kind of how humans have neighborhoods and have, whatnot. different kind of area in between. So the home range is where they have those home trees. So just like us, they have, little neighborhoods. So they each have their own home range, and those overlap often with other koalas, especially now because their habitat is kind of getting less and less. This is why they need a good amount of habitat, because they each have their own kind of area where they have their home trees and whatnot. They don't like to really get together with each other unless it's mating time, right? And the size of the range actually depends on the quality of the habitat, the sex of the koalas, the age, and the social position of koalas. So just like the majority of other animals, there's usually a hierarchical structure of some kind. This actually determines, for the most part, the kind of where or how large they get this home range of theirs, which is interesting. So by social position, sex, age, or whatnot, so just like humans, how often making more money will give you a larger home range, you could say. In the case of koalas, the higher social position gets them oftentimes a larger a home range. A mature male has a dark scent gland in the center of their white chest, and that actually excretes a dark and sticky sort of substance. So plenty of animals will have some sort of bodily secretion that allows them to mark their territory, and this is exactly what the koalas' scent gland is for. So marking territory is a very crucial part of how they live their lives, because it says, okay, so this is my space. You are not to enter my space unless unless there's a problem of some sort, unless you want to, go against each other, really. So they have this dark scent gland in the center of their white chest. You don't really see it if you look at koalas. It's pretty hidden, but they place it onto trees, and that acts as a marker for the territory. Just means beware, big koala here, right? Koalas can actually make a lot of verbal kind of noises. So I always love kind of hearing the different noises that animals make, because there's always some sort of distinction, and it's interesting to me. And koalas do verbalize in terms of loud snores sometimes, or bellows, really interesting kind of noises that you wouldn't imagine hearing from such a small or from just looking at the physical characteristics of that animal. You can search it up on YouTube another time if you'd like, if you're curious as to how the koalas actually sound, but it's usually not something that you entirely expect, right? And baby koalas are actually known as joeys. So joeys is a really interesting name. The term joey is actually reserved for animals that natively belong to Australia and their natural habitat there. So I was wondering why they're actually called joeys, because there's so many other common sort of names for babies, which is like calves, cubs, infants, things like that. And I've never heard something be referred to as a joey before. But it just turns out that for Australians, for Australia's native kind of animals, they like to classify the babies as joeys. So if you ever hear me say joeys, I'm not talking about someone named Joey. Maybe one of you out there listening is named Joey, but I'm referring to baby koalas specifically. Younger breeding females often give birth to one joey each year, but not all females will actually breed each year. So sometimes they breed every 2 to 3 years, depending on their age, depending on what's happening in their surrounding environment. So they don't always give birth each year. Koalas in the southern parts of Australia are actually larger, and they have thicker fur than those in the north. This is thought to have an adaptation to keep them warm in the colder southern winters that Australia has. Now, for me, because I live in Canada, I usually associate north with cold and south with hot. So in this case, it's counterintuitive to me, or it was counterintuitive, but it makes sense if you think about where Australia is. So it is thought, it's not entirely known why, but it's postulated to be because it's an adaptation to allow them to be warmer in the colder southern winters that they have there in Australia. And the baby koala stays in the mother's pouch for about 6 or 7 months, drinking only milk. I would like to compare this to kangaroos, but I can't. I haven't searched up any facts about them, but we'll do kangaroos one time and we'll kind of refer back to this episode and see if it's about the same. So they're in the mother's pouch for about 6 or 7 months and they drink only milk. Gum leaves, as we mentioned before, are toxic for most mammals. So the joey eats on a substance that's called pap before they can actually eat any kind of gum leaves. Now, reading about this it's not the most pleasant thing in the world. I will be as vague as I can, but pap is actually kind of a specialized form of its mom's droppings. Okay, but this is a very crucial part of their development because there's microorganisms that were inside the mother's intestines that through the pap can give that joey the ability to properly digest the gum leaves. If not, they would be in trouble. And they do that for a few weeks before they are able to kind of go out and eat gum leaves. Because eating toxic substances, generally toxic substances, having these microorganisms introduced at a younger age will help them develop the digestive system properly to be able to digest the food like all other average koalas there. So they stay in the mother's pouch 6 or 7 months, drinking only milk. For a few weeks, they will eat that pap that we just mentioned, and then they'll go on to eat gum leaves and other vegetation that suits them. So that was a really interesting fact to me that I've never heard before, and maybe for good reason, because it is a little gross when you think about it. At least how they did. I tried to describe it a little bit more vague. They were very specific on the facts website, but this is more of a relaxing sort of podcast, or at least it aims to be. After venturing out of the pouch, the baby will ride on its mother's abdomen or back, just like orangutans. Actually, I decided to throw that in there because that's just actually how orangutans do it as well. So if you've seen, I actually watched a beautiful kind of little documentary thing on YouTube. It was only about 20 minutes long, but it was a piece by National Geographic talking about the secret life of orangutans, and you can find that on YouTube. And it's just incredible watching nature photographers, how they get these shots, the work that they put into to deliver this sort of experience with animals. To me is such a gift, and it's incredible. So if you want to watch a very good documentary about orangutans, I very much I'm not going to say a documentary. I don't think that's what it's referred to as, but there's a YouTube video, National Geographic Secret Life of Orangutans. Super, super interesting. But we're talking about koalas, okay? Orangutans, you can wait. So between 1 and 3 years old, they will venture out on their own just to move out of the parents' or the mother's pouch rather. But that range, that 2-year range, the 1 to 3 years old, it really depends as to when the mother has her next joey. Of course, when the mother has her next baby, the other koala or the older koala can't just want to take up that pouch. They're probably too big, and the mother has to give all of its attention to the rising joey there. So female koalas are mature by about 2 years of age, and males by their 3rd or 4th year. So females kind of mature at almost twice the rate or close to it. I can't, I'm trying to compare that to another animal that I know, but nothing really comes to mind that I've learned so far with you guys. But just an interesting fact. This, I'm sure, has an evolutionary advantage because it allows for kind of faster breeding. And, if they had to wait until 4 years of age, instead of 2, maybe that would slow down reproduction and not allow this animal to survive as long as it did. So I'm sure that has some sort of advantage. Let's talk about their habitat. So they live in the tall eucalypt forests and low eucalypt woodlands of mainland eastern Australia, and also some islands off the eastern and southern coasts. So they don't actually live in rainforests. I wasn't actually sure if they lived in rainforests, but there's plenty of animals there's a bunch of animals that we covered that do live in rainforests, but they actually do not. They live in the eucalypt forest and the eucalypt woodlands. So Queensland, NSW, which is just New South Wales in Australia, Victoria and South Australia are the only states where koalas are found naturally in the wild. So in those ones that we just said. So interesting. They are not in rainforests, and they prefer those low eucalypt woodlands and tall eucalypt forests. They are actually fussy eaters, which is funny to me, considering that they eat mostly toxic leaves or gum leaves. So they're fussy eaters, and they have actually strong preferences for the different types of gum leaves. I just find it a little bit funny that they have strong preferences for toxic leaves, like, oh, I like this one, or I don't like this toxic one. It's just interesting to me. So, little interesting fact, they're fussy eaters, picky eaters. So if we have any picky eaters out there, don't worry, you're not alone, just like the koala here. But just don't eat gum leaves. They're not for you. A forest can only have a certain number of koalas living in it, and this is called the forest's carrying capacity. So, like pasture for sheep, the available gum trees can only feed a certain number of koalas, and this is very important because carrying capacity is something that has to be respected generally. So just like how the earth can have a carrying capacity for human beings, every ecosystem out there has a carrying capacity for whichever animal or animals live in that habitat, because there's only so much food to give. So respecting the carrying capacity is super important. And because now forests are kind of diminishing over time, especially in Australia, we'll talk about that in just one sec. Actually, we might as well. Australia has one of the highest land clearing rates in the world, and it leaves about 80%, 80% of koala habitat that has already disappeared, which is not a very good number, So as the forests go down, the carrying capacity also decreases, because now you have less gum leaves and less kind of food to give to every inhabitant of that habitat. So not very good news for the koala, but that it is what it is there. Let's talk about really quick that they're actually listed as vulnerable in 2012. And they are actually still on the rapid decline. And koalas are very interesting animals to me. I have an appreciation for them, especially now that I learned that they they have to eat pap as they're growing up. I have a very good sense of sympathy for these little guys. So there are things you can do, of course. If you ever want to help an animal that you hear is vulnerable or endangered, you can just, there's nothing to do with donating or whatever. If you want to donate, if you find yourself passionate like that, of course, but awareness is the main kind of donation that people can give, right? So just awareness that this is actually happening. But let's get to the last fact before we move on to our origin story there. Well, it's not really a story. So koalas don't normally need to drink because they get all of the moisture they need from the gum leaves. However, if they can drink if completely necessary, such as in times of drought when the leaves may not contain enough moisture for them to actually survive off of. So we had the same kind of thing with giraffes from last episode, right? Where they can get the majority of water from what they're eating, from vegetation. But sometimes, they have to go and drink. I'm sure they can figure out where there's a body of water that they can drink from. What I am wondering, though, is say a koala has to go drink because, there's a drought of some kind, or they haven't been having enough access to gum leaves. If they leave the tree, I assume that it's just kind of free real estate for anybody else to, or for any other koala to just kind of swoop in and take their place. I know that's what happens if one of the koalas actually passes, but I guess they would have to move in fairly quickly. I don't know how fast these little guys are. I haven't seen if they're sleeping 18 to 20 hours a day and trying to conserve energy. I doubt that they move incredibly quickly. So maybe it would be not. It would be sort of easy to kind of get in there and take the tree from the koala that went to drink. I don't know. That's something that I would like to actually research. But anyways, for any of you new listeners out there or old listeners, we like to end the podcast with sort of an animal fact about where the name originates from. Maybe there's a cool story about it. In the case of koala, it's more of just a translation sort of thing. It's not anything like a cool story. I think the only my favorite story from the animals that we've done is the manatee, for sure. So if you guys want to go listen to the manatee episode afterwards, you are completely welcome to do that. So the word koala is thought to mean no drink or no water in the Aboriginal language. So that was just a fact that was on the website. So the word koala, no drink and no water, which makes sense to me because they don't have to drink water very often at all. It's mostly in times of kind of emergency that they have to, or, where there's a drought or whatnot. So they don't actually need to drink very much at all or often. So I guess this makes sense. It's an apt term to use for sure. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Today was the koala episode. If you enjoyed, make sure to follow the podcast. You can share it with somebody else that maybe you want to give the gift of relaxing with animal facts. This is a new podcast. I'm still kind of figuring out the whole how to really run a podcast. Maybe I'll add some segments as I go on, and if you guys have anything constructive that you would like to send to me, maybe you want to see another segment on the show of some kind, you can always send an email to relaxwithanimalfacts@gmail.com, and I will consider it and see if it could work. Or if you're just enjoying the show, you can let me know if you'd like. But generally, thank you guys so much for tuning in and for listening. And I will see you next time with the next animal. Take care.